Thanks everyone for joining today. I'm excited to be here. My name is Ian Adams, and I'm a managing director here at Clean Energy Trust. We're so happy to have you here today to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion in climate tech. These are values that Clean Energy Trust has long been committed to, and we work diligently to support underserved and underrepresented entrepreneurs from the Midwest. Underrepresented individuals are often the ones disproportionately affected by climate change, but they're also uniquely positioned to help drive solutions. We know that diverse climate tech entrepreneurs really drive innovation. So we're really proud that 60% of the companies in the Clean Energy Trust portfolio have female or minority founders. Over the last 2 years, we've formalized our diversity, equity, and inclusion programming, which offers opportunities, awards, mentorship, and other stuff to support women and minority entrepreneurs focused on climate solutions. We'd really like to thank Andrea and the U.S. Bank Foundation for providing initial support for this initiative. So far, we've provided $75,000 in grant funding to our award recipients, some of whom you'll meet today. I'm also happy to share that Clean Energy Trust was just awarded grant funding from the U.S. Small Business Administration last week, which is going to help us continue and expand our initiatives supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs, along with support from U.S. Bank and NICOR. Now today, you're going to hear from folks working to fund and support diverse founders, as well as some of those diverse founders themselves. To kick off today's conversation, we're honored to be joined by Carr and Samara Hernandez. Karen is the founder and managing director of Exposition Ventures, and is previously the executive managing director at GE Ventures. In her free time, she is also a board member of Clean Energy Trust and the chair of our investment committee. Samara is the founding partner and managing director at Chingona Ventures, where she invests in badass founders at the earliest stages. We're excited to hear from them both today. My colleague Dylan O'Reilly will be moderating this conversation. Dylan, I'll turn things over to you to get things started.
All right, well, thank you, Ian, for those introductions. Karen, Samara, it's great to be with you both today. I know Ian provided a small overview of both of your backgrounds, but I think the best way to kick off the conversation would be to give you both the opportunity to kind of tell us more about your respective funds. So Karen, would you like to start?
Thanks, Dylan. Great to be here and just really privileged to be on the board of CET and love the work that CET has been doing in this important space. The space is important, and certainly diversity and inclusion within the space is super important. But Exposition Ventures is a seed and early stage venture capital fund focused on investing in advanced manufacturing and technologies, really driving a transformation of the industrial value chain. Prior to founding it, I'll just say I've probably spent the last 30 years working on building deep tech companies as an investor. Started my career at Arch Venture Partners, Patrick Ventures, Intellectual Ventures, GE Ventures, and now Exposition. And I've invested across a variety of areas, from healthcare to semiconductors to clean tech, and now advanced manufacturing. I am classically trained as a physical chemist. I got my PhD here in the Midwest at the University of Chicago, and was in the charter class of Kauffman Fellows. So that's my classical venture capital training as well. So delighted to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Samara, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. So I'm a founding partner of Chingona Ventures. Chingona Ventures does pre-seed mainly to seed stage investments. We're based here in Chicago, but do investments all over the United States. We launched in April of 2019. We've made now 27 commitments in Fund 1. We're about to launch Fund 2. We mainly focus on fintech, future of work, femtech, food, health and wellness, and edtech. We are very proud that over 80% of our portfolio companies, CEOs, not just founders, are women or minority. And before this, I was at Math Venture Partners, also a local venture fund here in Chicago through Fund 1 and Fund 2. So that's where I got my learnings in venture capital. And that's also where I saw the big opportunities to, one, go earlier at the pre-seed. Nothing's too early for us, literally pre-product, pre-revenue, pre-name. Two, go with founders that are next generation founders, and three, go in business models in industries that are not well funded. And prior to that, I was at Goldman Sachs. I was on the public markets for nearly 10 years. And so I've been investing throughout my entire career on the public markets and now the private markets. And then I am also trained as an engineer, not a PhD, but undergrad. I went to University of Michigan. And I am an immigrant to this country. So I was born in Mexico. I moved to the US at a very young age. So got the multicultural, low income, dual language household. So that's the ones I've always brought to my investing style.
Great, thank you. Both have such like diverse backgrounds professionally and educationally. That's great. So as you both said, you're both the founders of your funds, in addition to being managing partners. Can you both tell us a little bit more about your experience launching Exposition and Chingona and what drove you to strike out onto your own? Whoever wants to start can start.
I mean, I'll start and just say that, you know, kind of after 30 plus years of being in the venture space, as a partner at Arch Venture Partner, having run a venture team at GE Ventures, having developed an investment thesis that is performing extremely well, I thought that the time was right. I mean, I back entrepreneurs, and now it's a chance to do something entrepreneurial, to build a firm and to build a culture in a market space where I think there's tremendous opportunity. That was super exciting to me, and that's why I decided to launch Exposition. We can certainly talk about the challenges of trying to launch a first-time fund as a minority woman, and access to networks, but that's certainly been challenging. I think that's challenging for every entrepreneur that's you know, who's maybe more underrepresented in venture. You know, obviously better news that there's more attention being focused on it today. So there are new pools of capital coming in, but it doesn't make it any easier. I'll say that.
Yeah, and for me, why I launched, why I went off on my own, like this was before the last year or so. I think there's been a whole lot more fund managers coming to market, and I think it's really good. It was really scary to go off on your own, especially if you don't have a network. And like Karen said, we could talk about the challenges. You know, it's pretty unique to have women of color fund managers, especially in the Midwest. There's literally like less than 5, I want to say, and I'm counting all the states around us. Sole GPs even harder. But what I would say is that I didn't see anything like me, and I saw first and foremost an investable opportunity. So, and I had built time in the venture capital space where I built a network, where I've had deal flow, where I had a track record, where I said, okay, I know that I have the deal flow. I know that if I would have invested in this company, you know, where they would have been today. I just now need to go out and do it. It was very scary, but it was, I was very, very fortunate that I had a great supporter in my first fund, and that's what led me to launch my fund. So I'm very grateful for launching it here.
Yeah, so as you just said, like there aren't many female and even probably fewer female minority fund launchers within the Midwest. Why do you think, both of you, it's important to have fund managers from different backgrounds, and how do you think it leads to maybe more impactful investments or investments in more diverse founders?
I mean, I could start. I mean, you know, I don't think Karen and I specifically focus on it, but it will naturally come through our networks. The earlier you go in investing, the less data you have, the more unconscious bias there is. I don't care who you are, everyone has it. VC has historically and still is very relationship based. You get a lot of news out there about, people raising millions of dollars off of a deck, and that's usually because they're a second or third time founder, they have a network, and that just doesn't happen in minority communities. And women face very different challenges and face very different questions. And so the more you can have decision makers that are general partners running the funds, having the majority decision-making process, the more money is going to flow into these companies. So right now, I think it's less than 2% or less than 1%. It's basically a rounding error of all venture capital funding goes into women and minorities. And that has not changed. As a matter of fact, it's gone down for all women-led teams. So there's some movements that have happened, but we're certainly not where we need to be given the opportunity in the market.
Yeah, I think Samara is exactly right. I mean, I think if you look at venture capital, most of the companies seem to be funded by or, backing guys from Stanford and Harvard, right? It's a pretty limited network. And I think when you have fund managers that have other networks, that helps to bring other entrepreneurs to the front.
Great, thank you. I think to kind of build upon this topic and get a little bit deeper, understanding basically now how vital it is to have diversity of backgrounds represented. Karen, I'll ask you this question first. So specifically within the climate tech space, how do you see VCs being able to achieve more diverse representation and participation from minorities or women?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we're thinking about who's an entrepreneur, there are a lot of different paths to it. When I think about clean tech, oftentimes you think about sort of the technical founder of it and some new technological breakthrough. And, while there are certainly more people from underrepresented backgrounds getting advanced degrees in the technical areas. I actually looked this up. NSF published their 2019 study on PhDs going to underrepresented minorities. I can tell you this: when I was getting a PhD at the University of Chicago, I was the only Black person there in the 5.5 years that I was in that chemistry department. But in the disciplines like physics, the physical sciences, and comp sci, you're seeing the numbers are up. It's like 9.5% now, and in engineering disciplines, it's more like 11.5%. So certainly, you're seeing a rise in people coming from these technical backgrounds, and certainly you can think about looking in places like HBCUs where they're doing a really fantastic job of educating scientists and engineers coming from these underrepresented backgrounds. But forming a company is not about one single skill set. It's about forming a team, quite frankly. And so folks who are bringing industry domain is also useful, whether they're coming from the regulatory side or the government side. They might have worked at a utility and where they're bringing some real domain expertise. I think that's helpful as well. But one of the things that we can be doing to help seed next generation companies is to make sure that when we are investing in companies, that we're bringing minorities onto the teams and onto the board, so that we're seeding the next generation of entrepreneurs. Because Samara mentioned it earlier. Hey, look, if you're a serial entrepreneur, if you've been at a company that's been venture backed and has been successful, you're more likely to get funded. And so the more that we're bringing those kinds of diverse talent to the companies that are existing, we're setting them up for the future.
Definitely. Samara, I know obviously Chingona invests in typically not clean tech. So then kind of thinking about it in a different way, kind of to widen the subject, I guess you could say, what steps do you think, this is also building off Karen's, her latest point, what steps do you think early stage companies can take on their own to make sure that their teams or their networks are inclusive of underrepresented groups?
Yeah, I mean, look, just to touch on the first point, we have 2 clean tech companies unintentionally. That's not even part of our focus. One of them is Topple, so they're building blockchain solutions to really understand the whole supply chain and make sure that they start off in the ag tech space and make sure that every part of the supply chain is fair trade. And then the next one we invested in Zero Shop, so they do plastic-free grocery delivery. And I didn't have a thesis around clean tech by any means. It was, they came in, I saw an investable opportunity. As a matter of fact, the blockchain one, I put them in the fintech bucket. But I say that because it's not just me, but there's a lot of investors who may not have a focus on it, but there's a lot more problems that founders are solving in the clean tech space. It's become a huge, huge focus for many of us. And so we look for, first and foremost, an investable opportunity and a huge need. And right now, that is one of the biggest needs today across the world, right? Everybody knows it. So we are actively looking for opportunities there. In terms of what other investors can do to diversify their networks, first of all, it has to be something that you really want to do and you want to understand why, right? Not just a need to have or a nice to have. We'll hire an intern or an analyst, we'll put them on the website and then call it a day. That's not how this works if you really want to change. And the reason why should be a first and foremost business opportunity, right? With more diverse teams comes better investment decisions, different perspectives, different networks. And in order to keep someone at your fund or at your company, you need to not only bring them on, but engage them, not just have them come in as a junior person and then have them take notes and never ask for their opinion, right? We need to get people involved in the decision-making process, give them promoted, give them experiences where they can become the decision makers. So it's not only bringing somebody on, creating a culture where they feel empowered and to make decisions, but also within your network, look within your network and figure out where can you expand on that. So with our fund, we've actually had funds, other GPs of other funds invest in our fund for deal flow because they just know, they're like, we just don't have that access to that network and we go earlier too. So investing in other funds, hiring and promoting, basically hiring and wiring is what we need to do.
Dylan, we have time for one more question.
Okay, that sounds great. This is going by very quickly. Then to kind of wrap it up, I mean, both of you, I think, are incredibly inspiring in the work that you're doing and striking out on your own and founding your own funds. So I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that. So then lastly, what advice do you have for other aspiring venture capitalists who may not often see themselves represented in the field?
Well, this is the ultimate networking business. And I would just encourage you to build diverse networks. And this is also the ultimate apprenticeship business too, where you do have to do it and learn it through apprenticeship. So I would just encourage people to build diverse networks. And certainly, there are perhaps more examples of people who are coming from these underrepresented backgrounds that you can reach out to. I'm certainly available, and I'm sure Samara is as well.
Yeah, for any aspiring VCs, I mean, look, there's a lot of opportunities now that weren't available years ago. So being able to angel invest through, Republic, for instance, crowdfunding sites to actually build your own track record and invest as little as $100 per day or per company. You can be a scout for different funds. There's a lot of fellowship programs. So there's a lot of opportunities for aspiring VCs. For current VCs that are junior in your role, it's, I think table stakes is being able to create a financial model and create a memo. You're going to have to do that anyways. But as Karen, alluded to in building diverse networks, it's building your network. It's building your brand. There's a lot of sales that goes into this, and having founders want to take your check and having investors want to network with you and send you their deal flow. It's even in fundraising. So I always encourage my team to go out, build their networks, build a brand while doing the work.
Well, great. Thank you so much for being here today. This was wonderful. Ian, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Dylan. And thanks again, Karen and Samara. Some really interesting thoughts there on the value of networks. And I liked, Samara, your hiring and wiring. That's a good shorthand for folks to keep track of. So thanks again for your remarks there. Next up, we're going to hear from Andrea Mardock, Vice President of Environmental Programs at US Bank, and Sierra Ermani May, who's the founder and CEO of Rebundle. They'll be talking with Dylan about US Bank's Clean Tech Inclusion Award and more about Sierra's business. Dylan, back over to you.
All right, thank you. Hi, Andrea. We'll wait for Sierra to turn her audio and video on, and then we can get started.
I can turn my audio on. It says I'm unable to start video.
Okay. We have a backend person who should be able to help, but since we can at least hear you, there we go. Nice. Thanks for both joining us today. I think sticking to kind of the same format as before, it'd be nice to start with a little bit of an overview. So Andrea, can you speak a little bit about like your role at US Bank and what motivated US Bank to partner with Clean Energy Trust on the Clean Tech Inclusion Award?
Yeah, so my role at US Bank is environmental strategy. I manage the environmental strategy across the enterprise as part of the CSR team. And so I've been here several years. We've had a couple environmental national partners in the past. And when I came across Clean Energy Trust, I really thought it fit in well with our environmental strategy as well as our social strategy and just what we're really trying to do as an organization. The Inclusion Award, the Clean Tech Inclusion Award came about when we were looking for a second environmental partner that aligned with our strategy, but also aligned with that, the social impact strategy that we had created a couple of years prior, but also aligned with the focus of our business as a company and our business model. So our social impact strategy centers around economic advancement of all, and strengthening the economic power of women and communities of color in particular, specifically the Black community. And so this award was a way to combine our interest in advancing the environmentally beneficial companies that we had been doing through customers and business opportunities, merging that with our partnerships and merging that with our overall social and environmental strategy of the company. It also aligned with our company focus around technology and innovation. We love the idea of this, startup funding, helping to advance these great companies along the way. And we were excited when we saw Rebundle because the very real need that Sierra is addressing, and just a really personal story of seeing a need, having a need personally and wanting to do something to address that need. So we were just excited about the story she was telling and what she wanted to do. And we wanted to be part of that progress and success, even if it's just a little part of it. She's had some great beginning success, and so we just wanted to help her grow even more.
Yeah, definitely. Sierra, do you want to tell everyone else a little bit about that story and what Rebundle is doing, and what maybe excited you about the opportunity to partner with US Bank?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll try to keep it short, but like Andrea alluded to, I had a negative experience with plastic synthetic hair in my braids and was looking for a solution that would be better for my body and my health as well as the environment. So we just launched in January of this year with our first product. It's called Braid Better. It is hair extensions made out of banana fiber, non-toxic, itch-free, and biodegradable after use. And what I've been trying to do with the company and the direction we're headed is to really decrease the number of women and people in general who suffer from scalp irritation and exposure to cancerous chemicals and harmful toxins, and also to decrease the amount of waste that's accumulated from hair products in general and hair extensions more specifically. So with that, I knew that I needed some access and partnerships within the clean tech space, clean energy, clean products, and to learn more about how we could incorporate some of those theories of change and business models into our own so that we could build sustainably. Oh, and yes, Yeah, that answered why I was excited about this. Yeah, I was sent this through Julia at Arch Grants, and she knew that that was a priority of mine, is figuring out how we could get more connected into this space.
Yeah, definitely. Sierra, to kind of like build on that, as a Black female founder, finding like a personal problem with a product that you were using that kind of the market wasn't addressing by providing alternatives. What was your experience in launching Rebundle and getting things off of the ground?
It seems so far away now, but it's really not. I spent a good chunk of my time in the very early days trying to figure out a story that a person from any background or experience could understand, whether they had ever worn the product or not, and really bringing it to a very simple level, which is that it's not safe and it's not good for the environment. And once we were able to figure that out, we were, getting a lot more attention and reception around trying to get that proof of concept. Then after we launched the product, it just kind of became an aha or a duh for a lot of people, like, oh, you just wanted, plant-based hair. And like, yes, it is possible. We are developing a process that is making this product safer to wear and better for the environment after it's done being worn. So I would say that in the beginning, it was a challenge to present a problem that most people didn't see or understand. And when I say didn't see or understand, I'm talking about people who didn't necessarily wear the product themselves. But now that we've grown a little bit more, that story has become much larger, a little more fluid, but much larger, in that this is what we've been able to do in this time frame and with these resources, but this is where we're really headed.
Yeah, great. Andrea, you kind of highlighted like what stood out a little bit about Sierra and the work Sierra and her team are doing at Rebundle. How do you envision kind of collaborating with and amplifying the work Rebundle is doing over the next year?
Yeah, so as a financial institution, obviously, we want to strengthen our communities, and that means, financing opportunities. It means equitable opportunities across the board in our communities. You lift up one community, it lifts up the whole. So we really want to just hopefully connect Sierra with some of the other initiatives going on, Project Access, and some of our other kind of entrepreneur as well as minority programs that we have going on to just help people exactly like her, entrepreneurs that might not have all the avenues, all the connections that some might have, and to just really build up those amazing companies that are out there and offer them solutions and offer them connections that they might not have. So our goal is to help connect her with those areas of the bank, those business lines that can offer those connections.
Yeah, that's great. Sierra, so then like thinking about the opportunities that have come with the Clean Tech Inclusion Award and everything else that's going on with helping Rebundle grow, where do you envision kind of the company going within the next year?
I think with this award and these two communities in particular, I wanted to put a lot of focus on our recycling program. And so you all have already been able to help us make a lot of progress there with good contacts and getting samples sent out and being able to make more progress there than we would have otherwise. So that's something that was super important to me and exciting about this community. And then I think that there are rooms that we don't necessarily have access to, or spaces that we're not aware of that could help the business in other ways, which could be supply chain, finding talent and pulling talent from other companies and other communities that we otherwise wouldn't have access to be able to strengthen the business from the inside out, and understanding how you grow a business from a startup with very limited reach to being a powerful brand that is known in households and around the world. And I think that having access to US Bank can support us in that effort.
Definitely. Well, you touched on your recycling program, and I would love to talk about that more. I remember in an interview you once gave, you talked about the recycling program being a means of widening the access for folks who wear braids and want to find an alternative solution to just throwing them away, but maybe also can't afford to make the switch to plant-based hair braids at this time. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, you said it exactly how it is, and it was also really important to me because when I started the company, that's what I was looking for. I didn't know that we would end up making our own product, but what I was looking for was a way to continue to wear my braids. If I had to, if I couldn't find anything else, how do I continue to wear these? And we've seen a lot of positive perception from that. It is a part of our customer acquisition strategy. It's a part of our brand and our identity. And, you know, we decided that once we got this award that we would stick a pin in it just so that we could really build it in the way that we want, so that people have even easier access to participating in the program with us. So it's something that is really, really important to me. Like, obviously all the parts of the business matter, but that's one piece that, you know, what even popped in my head when I got this idea a few years ago.
Yeah, I love kind of the dual options that you're offering to people. I think it's wonderful. Andrea, back to you. So this is the second year we've been able to work with you all to offer the Clean Tech Inclusion Award. What other plans does US Bank have to continue and expand upon your commitment to ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion within the organization?
Yeah, our DEI efforts really center around a program we launched in February called the US Bank Access Commitment. And it's a long-term series of initiatives to address persistent racial wealth, to address the persistent racial wealth gap and increase wealth building opportunities, starting with the Black community specific. So it's focused on providing capital for small businesses owned and led by people of color, housing and homeownership, and workforce advancement. So a lot of exactly what we're doing with CET, it fits really well in with that program. They align really well. So another just example of us aligning our environmental efforts with our social efforts. So the work is targeted at three areas: families and communities, small businesses, and employees. And it's building on the $116 million commitment that we already made following George Floyd's death last year. And 1 year on, we're already exceeding our expectations. So we're going to just continue on, you know, providing access and putting more dollars into that access commitment. I think it's been a success so far, and it's really hopefully addressing some of the needs in the communities that we serve.
That's wonderful. Sierra, how do you envision kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion shaping Rebundle as it continues to grow?
Yeah, that's something that we have had to take a look at, or has become our focus right now, because we're actually hiring and have been trying to hire. And so tapping into different communities, going outside of the communities that we're familiar with and looking for talent, letting people know that we have these open positions and, you know, that they need to be filled, and interviewing as many people as we can. So I think that as a Black-owned company, that it's a different experience, and what your hiring experience is different, and who you look for and who even applies for some of your roles that are open. And so we've seen a good mix of folks and backgrounds and experiences come through our pipeline, and just trying to figure out, you know, how do we widen that even more, and what resources can we take advantage of to get the best talent regardless of where they are, where they come from.
Okay, well, great. That's wonderful. I think those were kind of the majority of questions that we had today, but we do have time, so let's keep chatting. So I don't know, Andrea, or hi, Ian.
Hey, Dylan, we do have time for one more question.
Okay, one more. Let's see. Let's see if the chat has anything. I mean, Andrea, I think you lightly touched upon kind of what excited you about Sierra. Is there anything else about Rebundle that piqued your interest?
I really think when we saw Rebundle, it was a back and forth kind of discussion because we loved the story. Our environmental strategy really, in the past, has traditionally been around clean energy. We have a real expertise within our company of clean energy. And so Rebundle stood out so much that even though it didn't really fit with what we traditionally were looking for, we love the community impact, the personal story. And it was really just that, community piece that was really, there was, a need in the community and a really kind of boots on the ground approach, more so than some of the other ones that were more aimed at, higher level issues or, more, strategy type stuff, where this is a real community need and a real boots on the ground kind of effort. And so we just really liked it. And it aligned so well with what we're trying to do on the access to finance side. And so I just think there's so much overlap between environmental and social that, you can't address environmental issues without addressing social issues as well. And, lifting both up, and that overlap was really important for us and continues to be important for us to address both at the same time. And so I think Rebundle is an awesome example of, just addressing both of those strategies and those needs at the same time.
Definitely. It's
Yeah,
great.
and
No, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I can, I appreciate that sentiment, because when we are applying for certain things within clean tech, we're often excluded because we don't fit into the norm, or it's not something that seems like it affects everyone, even though it does, versus some of these more high level strategy solutions that require way more capital, way more research, way more time, rather than investing in solutions that matter today. And I think that that's something that I've had to learn about, some of the areas of opportunity within clean tech is that there are products that need to be addressed as well. There are communities that have to be addressed. And although some of these larger issues are just as important, we have to spread some of the resources so that some of the more immediate issues are being addressed as well.
Definitely. It's great to see that. I think for so many people, it's starting to click that environmental issues directly overlap with social issues and human health issues. And I think Rebundle is offering a solution that hits on all three. So yeah, it seems like we're at time, but thank you both for spending the time to talk with us today. We're so excited to continue these partnerships and continue this work over the next year. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Andrea and Sierra. That's super interesting. Last but not least, I am excited to introduce our third segment, which is Mina Byers and Gary Ong. Mina Byers is the Vice President for Business and Community Development at Nicor Gas, and Gary Ong is the founder and CEO of Celadine Technologies. So looking forward to hearing more about Nicor and Celadine's businesses and their potential for collaboration together. Dylan, back to you.
All right. Mina, Gary, hi. Thanks for joining us today. So again, I think it's beneficial to start off with some general overviews. So Mina, would you like to start if there's anything else you'd like to elaborate on at your role with Nicor, and then what inspired you all to help us create the Multicultural Innovator Award?
Sure. Thanks so much, Dylan. Happy to be here with you guys today. So again, I'm the Vice President of Business and Community Development at Nicor. At Nicor Gas, we serve 2.2 million customers across the northern 1/3 of Illinois. So that's more than 7 million people and more than 200,000 businesses that we serve. And in my area in business and community development, I have the honor of leading the team that works to sustain and grow our region by really looking at how we deliver customer solutions, how we invest in communities, how we enrich the communities that we serve. So we've been a longtime partner with you guys at the Clean Energy Trust. And I think, we've grown as partners. So as each of our organizations have evolved our own DE&I strategies and our focus on that, it seemed like a good time to do something focused on that together. And so I feel like that's through those conversations with the team and Ian and Eric and everyone, that's kind of how the Multicultural Innovator Award was born. So it really brings together our shared goals around clean tech and supporting entrepreneurs and now advancing equity as well.
Yeah, happy to be partnered with you. Gary, same for you. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and what aspects of the NICOR Award excited you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so I lead Celadine, and the whole point here is to try to accelerate the transition to a clean energy future using hydrogen, right? But, you know, trying to like transform a more than 100-year-old industry, it's really hard, really, really hard. And so, you know, having one of the premier companies here in Illinois to help you out really helps, right? And then one of the things that I'm looking forward to having this conversation is really getting you know, better information about how the industry is moving, how we can really help, right? Especially on things like the infrastructural component, how our technology integrates into existing understanding of how the market structure works, how we can really leverage technology to change the market economics around hydrogen, right? And that's why I'm really excited to work with like someone from NICOR.
Great, yeah. So Gary, kind of going back to your background a little bit, if you want to talk about that more, but also, is there anything about your background that you believe provides a unique perspective as the founder and CEO of a climate tech startup?
I mean, first of all, I mean, I want to thank Clean Energy Trust and NICOR Gas, right, for giving me this award. I just realized, you know, I guess this is technically the inaugural award for this in particular. So, you know, extra thanks there, right? But as a multicultural founder, I do think that there's a little bit of an edge in finding a hard tech climate tech startup, right? So for those who don't know, I came originally from Malaysia. Right. So when you talk about things like the impacts of climate change affecting like an emerging or developing world, right? That's not a hypothetical for someone like me, right? Because I grew up seeing things like deforestation and, you know, the environment being exploited for the most part. And then, you know, sea level rising. Malaysia's a peninsula, so it's almost an island. So when you say sea levels rise and then you see floods everywhere, yeah, that was basically what you see growing up. So the impacts of climate change you see in the third role, it's just reality, right? It's not hypothetical, and that really helps drive home the point when you start thinking about things and trying to understand why you. That shows up when you finally pitch and talk to investors, and they understand why you're doing what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So then, Mina, now hearing more about Gary's background, how do you envision NICOR being able to collaborate with Gary and the Celadine team as it relates to NICOR's sustainability strategy?
Absolutely. So, you know, we understand the role that we play in supporting the clean energy future and the growth in our region's economy. So we believe it's got to be both, right? Like that we have to help with this transition to the clean energy economy, but we also need to help grow and see those opportunities to do that. So we are doing a lot of work in that, which includes, you know, we have a goal to achieve net zero methane emissions from our operations by 2030. We're working to support decarbonization of buildings. In fact, over the last 10 years, since the launch of our energy efficiency program in 2010, we've helped customers reduce their emissions by about 1 million metric tons. And a big part of that today is our leadership in renewable natural gas, as well as in hydrogen research. And that's where we align very well with Gary's product and his company and what he's trying to do. So in our efforts to advance that research, along with our parent Southern company, and to stimulate our region's circular economy, I think ways that we can collaborate with Gary really include, you know, not only the access to funds, but I think the bigger opportunity for us is introducing Gary to our network. So we're doing a lot of work here to build the ecosystem to grow the hydrogen economy in the Midwest. But as a part of Southern Company, you know, we're part of a 50-year-old dynamic expansive R&D team that's leading national hydrogen research. We're also really well connected in the ecosystem here with partners like, just today, Gary and I were talking to the Gas Technology Institute. We were introducing him to some of our partners there. And finally, just introducing him to our B2B network. So, we work with customers who are looking for hydrogen transportation solutions and who are looking to partner and innovate. And I think by making those connections, we can open doors for Gary that are perhaps, not in his current circles. And, since it is a collaboration, of course, I have to mention, we hope to learn a lot from Gary too. We want to learn how we can continue to support entrepreneurs in clean tech, both as an energy provider, but also just as corporate citizens.
Definitely. Gary, is there anything you're looking forward to or excited about with collaborating with NICOR over the next year?
I mean, just to follow up on what you said, we literally talked about the GTI collaboration today, and then I had a call with Southern Company yesterday. So we're moving pretty fast on collaboration opportunities. One thing that's already been surprising, it's like we were talking about projects, and it's an interesting perspective coming from a startup, and suddenly you talk to like a corporate partner, for instance, right, or even something like a corporate mentor, and you start realizing the scale of the problem, and rather how much potential there is to execute on a project that has much higher impact now that you have access to a bigger network and bigger capital and better planning. Just for bigger projects, right? So that's all quite exciting. So I'm quite excited to move the conversation forward. Just coming from the last 2 days on initiating new projects.
That's great. Well, it's wonderful to hear kind of like so much collaboration is already happening. That's awesome. Gary, one thing I wanted to make sure we touched on, and I feel like you both have kind of lightly talked about it so far, is access, and specifically access to capital. So knowing and understanding that access to capital is always a big challenge, particularly for diverse founders. Is there anything that you wish you knew that you'd like to share with other climate tech entrepreneurs, or any kind of experiences you'd like to share in terms of gaining access to capital?
Yeah, I mean, would you like to go first, or shall I start?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, so from my perspective, I think, to mirror all the things that have been said by the prior panelists, right? Network, right? But I think in clean tech, there is a little bit of an advantage in two sense, right? So for starters, there's a disadvantage and then there's an advantage. The disadvantage is that when you're in clean tech, you're kind of a double minority, because clean tech itself is already a minority amongst, startups in general, right? And then now, if you're a minority founder, then now you have an extra penalty over there. Having said that, right, there is an extra benefit of being in clean tech though, which is that you'll see that a lot of people who are working in clean tech share similar values, right? You are trying to help the environment. You are, put it colloquially, trying to save the world. So you can choose to bond over those values instead, right? And then you can use that to bridge the divide. And secondly, being diverse in culture and so forth helps you to actually network with investors, for instance, that are not necessarily in the US, right? You're able to access investors, say, for instance, from Singapore or Japan, Korea, and those are all open. And we have actually found it to be quite useful because, in other countries like Japan, for instance, they're quite progressive on hydrogen technologies as well. So there are opportunities beyond the US that has been accessible, given like a more diverse background.
Mina, is there anything you wanted to add on this topic?
I'll just add that I think everyone here sees, the passion and just how dynamic Gary is. And I think it's really important to, for entrepreneurs, that are facing those challenges, to really think about working with organizations like Clean Energy Trust to, tighten up your pitch, know how to introduce your product, and your company to corporate entities and other investors. And I think that's something that we learned through the Multicultural Innovator Award, was that, it has to be a compelling pitch, and we have to know right away how that product is going to make an impact. Gary does a really good job of that. And I think, That's probably a no-brainer for a lot of the entrepreneurs that might be listening, but I just wanted to emphasize as a corporate partner and an investor, how important that is for entrepreneurs not to lose sight of that.
Yeah. Gary, thinking kind of internally in for Celadine, what would you say kind of as the CEO of your company, you envision your future commitments to diversity, equity, inclusion as you continue to grow?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about that a lot, right? And so this might be a slight pivot to the conversation, right? But the thing that I spend a lot of brain power on is actually climate justice, right? Making sure that as we do the clean energy transition, that it's not just that folks won't get marginalized as part of the transition, but that we actually involve folks as part of the transition, right? So going back to my background from Malaysia, for instance, right? I remind myself with the following fact, right? Which is about an acre of rainforest sequesters about 2 cars worth of CO2, right? So if you don't include people in the effort, what you're doing is you're actually reducing efficiency in being able to transition the green economy, right? Because now there are other players, they're not bad people. They're just other players that are not involved in the process. They're kind of working against you. And so if you want to ensure the transition happens, the best strategy is actually to make sure other people get a chance to participate and help you get there, right? And I can't take credit for this viewpoint because it was pointed out to me recently by a speaker, Kamal Kapadia, that pointed it out. And it's a good idea, right? That perhaps inclusion is not just something that we have to do on the side. It's something that's essential to the strategy. So yeah, that's one of the big things that Celadine wants to do in the near future, and as part of our corporate mission.
That's great. Yeah. Mina, what's next for NICOR and your commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
And I think, that's maybe even an area where, we can support Celadine and help think through that, because certainly diversity, equity, inclusion is, a part of who we are at NICOR Gas from, the very top to the front lines. And, internally, we're doing a lot on equity work. We have an initiative, Fueling Equity, that's really focusing on ways that we can not only advance equity in the workplace, but also in the communities that we serve. We are going to be launching a foundation in a few weeks that is really focused on this work, community and economic development, growth, and supporting small businesses in disadvantaged communities. And, I may have mentioned our efforts in supplier diversity. And in the past 10 years, we've spent about 1.5 billion in, or maybe, in 2020, for sure, I know it was 50% of our total spend was with diverse suppliers. So, we're going to maintain that commitment, but I think if particularly in clean tech, we're building an ecosystem here. So this is a place, and I think Gary's comments on environmental justice are so poignant because, there is a place here where there's a convergence of sustainability and economic justice, economic development and equity. And I think that's sort of the sweet spot that we find here with this award and other initiatives like this. So I think we're going to be leaning into that convergence more and trying to see, how we can advance equity in places where we're also advancing sustainability, where we're also growing the economy in our region.
That's wonderful to hear. Looks like Ian popped up, so I'm assuming we have time for one more question. So with that in mind, why not take it broad? I feel like every day we hear of new things going on within the hydrogen space, and new innovations popping up. Are there anything in particular that either of you are excited about happening in hydrogen?
The thing that excites me most about hydrogen isn't necessarily a brand new tech. I mean, I'm excited about Celadine's tech. That's definitely true. You guys should check it out. You guys haven't already. But the thing that actually excites me most about hydrogen is actually the alignment of stakeholders, right? You can think of it as by 2050, we're seriously trying to transition all of energy right now, right? That means, trying to find a way to either decarbonize natural gas or find a replacement for it. There's the grid, and then there's everything. It's a big problem. And even though I am very gung-ho and supportive of startups fundamentally don't have the resources to get that done, right? It's just an impossible ask, right? So for the first time now, you can see there's a strong alignment in stakeholders between corporate industries as well as government, as well as startups, right? And people are actually talking. So that paints a more optimistic perspective of like being able to hit our goals of decarbonization, especially in terms of realizing hydrogen. So yeah, I mean, not necessarily technology, but I guess people are talking, and that is exciting to me.
Yeah.
And they're talking seriously about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mina, is anything exciting you?
You know, I was gonna say something very similar, and just building on what Gary just shared. I think it is this opportunity to facilitate partnerships and explore, you know, hydrogen creates this opportunity to explore mutual benefit across partners that ordinarily wouldn't be working together on, you know, revenue streams or energy, you know, processes or any of these things. So, and that's what we're seeing in the market while we lean into it, and while we try to understand how NICOR can support and be a part of that economy. You know, we're finding ourselves as connectors, facilitating partnerships and facilitating opportunities to collectively decarbonize. So that's what's exciting about it to me is, you know, community at a different scale, thinking about community at a different scale.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of it, think about it, right? If we all succeed, then you can say, you know, sure, there might not be one name that would take full credit for this, but you would be able to say at the end of it, it's like we all helped lay the groundwork for like the next basically ecosystem and groundwork for what energy looks like in about 50 to 100 years. And I mean, that's number one, it's a rare opportunity. Number two, I mean, how is that not exciting? I mean, that's absolutely exciting, is it not? I mean, so there's that.
No, it's definitely exciting, for sure. So it looks like we are just about out of time. Thank you both for spending the time to chat with me and with all of us today. This was great. We're excited to continue to work with you both. And yeah, thank you again.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Mina. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited too, and it's nice to feed off of your excitement on that. So nice to end on an optimistic note. Thanks everyone again for joining today. So if you missed part of this conversation or would like to see again, you'll receive a link to the event recording in a follow-up email. It'll be on our YouTube page in a couple of days as well. Also, our next webinar is going to be an information session about our investment cycle for interested entrepreneurs. That'll be on Thursday, November 18th. That said, we always accept applications from climate tech startups for investment on a rolling basis on our website at cleanenergytrust.org/apply. In the meantime, keep an eye out for some big news from us. We're looking to sharing more soon, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks again for joining us.